AM in New York, one of the RKO General family of stations whose principles and practices assure you of responsible and informative broadcasting in the public interest. Correct time is now 10:15 Eastern Daylight Saving Time. Time for the Gene Shepherd Show.
Good evening, sport fans. Once again, it's time for us to enter the great arena. Once again, it's time to see whether or not those eternal forces of good or evil are ready to play out the eternal skein. Also, sport fans, stay tuned to your radio. Lay your dough on a line. Put your money where your mouth is, smart guy. And in the next 45 minutes, that answer may come. Yes, the pari-mutuel ratings are going up and down. The board is lighting up. The pinball game of life is ready to be played. And be careful. You're liable to be the one in your neighborhood to hit the tilt button. So do not. Here we go. Why, I'm up forever. Thank God it's Wednesday. Certainly good to be here. Would you please bring me on some razzmatazz music there? Just a little hairy music, please. That gets us underway here. Get out my shoes, huh? All right, that's enough of that. How's that, kid? Oh, yeah, it's Friday night. Oh, what a fantastic kumbala kumbaliola in haka clunk. Oh, have any of you, serious question out here now, very serious. Have any of you ever had Polish peppers? Polish hot peppers? Hot peppers. I'm talking about pickled peppers. They come in a jar, right, Corny? You've seen them, and they float there, and it's a big jar, and it looks like it should have pickled pig's knuckles in it, only instead it has pickled red Polish peppers. Now, they have different types of peppers. For example, down in the islands, you're right, they have a thing called bird peppers. Campala, caliente, mucho. Oh, wow. Well, now, the reason I'm asking you this is I have a very special subterranean motivation for such a question. Now, listen very carefully. Now, listen to the story now. Now, how many of you have ever been in Holland? Well, I have been in Holland. Holland, among other things, has a quality of calmness about it, Corny. It's a calm country, you know. These are not demonstrator type people. They're quiet, almost stolid people. There's an air of goodwill that floats around in the atmosphere of Holland. And you go into a Holland bar, and they're very cozy. Dutch bars is a coziness. They're little, you know. It's kind of a cold country. And so the bars tend to be small. And you know that in many of these countries, they call their bars cozies. You know how the British call it a cozy? Yeah, it's a little tiny bar. And so they have these all over Holland. And I want to read you a story of a thing that happened in Haarlem, the Netherlands. Just for laughs, a customer at a snack bar picked up a jar of hot Polish peppers and devoured its contents. He stood there for a couple of seconds, drank a beer, and then... He went on a fantastic rampage, destroyed nearly all the furniture. Other patrons gave him glasses of water to drink, but he did not let up. He kept on and on. He broke the glasses. He hurled the water all over the joint, smashed a coffee percolator, and then finally attacked the waiter. The fuzz locked him up and said they would hold him in the cooler until, quote, he cooled down. Oh, man, now don't laugh. You know, I read this thing and I thought, oh, that poor Cluck. Let me tell you a story. Oh, it just reminded me. Maybe I better save it for the limelight. No, I'll tell the story now. I was a newsboy, see? And when you're a newsboy, when you walk around, you have all kinds of clientele. You have ladies who arrive at the front door with kimonos on. You know, that's one kind. And you have short, fat guys with bristly stubble. That's one kind of customer. And then you have the sort of hazy, misty customer that never comes to the front door. And they shove the money under the crack in the door, you know. And the paper sort of disappears. You never see them. But one of my favorite customers was the Bluebird Tavern. And every day I would come into the Bluebird Tavern and they would get 3 papers, see. And I would come into the Bluebird Tavern and they had this long bar, big, beautiful mahogany bar. And there's always about 6 guys sitting down at the end of it. And I'd come in with the papers, you know, about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. The papers came out. It was an afternoon paper, see. And I would come in about 4 or 5 o'clock, and I would look forward to the Bluebird. And I would work all kinds of little things out in my mind, little bits and little plots, because every day they would have on the Bluebird, on the bar, they would have these bowls full of potato chips. They would have potato chips, or they would have pretzels, or they would have peanuts. And I would come in, see, as a newsboy. I would come back, walk down the length of the bar, and he always said, put the papers down here at the other end of the bar, see. So I would come down, I'd lay the papers down, and then when I'm sneaking out, I would grab a whole bowl of these peanuts, and I'd pour them in my jacket. Well, the bartender's looking the other way, see. Or I would grab a whole bowl of potato chips. Oh, I loved that. You know, I was stealing it and eating these things when you go out on the road. It was all part of the scene. I loved it. I loved coming towards this place all the time. And they had at the end of the bar, they had this big jar, great big glass jar with a big top on it. And in the jar, they had about maybe 30 or 40 hard-boiled eggs. Have you ever seen those hard-boiled eggs in bars? They're the hard-boiled egg scene. Once in a while, he'd give me a hard-boiled egg. And I'd put a little salt on it. I'd take a handful of potato chips, and I'd go sneaking out. And then they also had a big jar with pickled pig's feet. Big jar, see. And at the other end, right, they have these all in a row. They had 3 of them, pickled pig's feet. They had the egg, and at the far end was this big jar of these things. Now, we never had anything like this in our house. You know, my mother thought piccalilli was pretty racy. Her idea of really going well out was to eat a radish. That was very hot to my mother. And so we never had anything like this in the house. But here was this jar full of these beautiful-looking things. They were really lovely, you know. There's sort of a dark blood red, and there's a kind of a soft umber-colored one. And you know the yellow ones, Corny? Have you ever seen those yellow type? They're really bright, sharp yellow with a kind of a green end, little green on the end, see? And they're long like string beans, sort of hang down there. Then there's round ones, too, you know. And they were mixed. And they would be in this big jar full of this greenish, yellowish fluid with all floating bits of dill. Oh, they look great, you know, little bits of dill, and you could see these little cloves and spices and all that stuff. And once in a while, when I would come in, they'd have the top open, and oh, what a smell. Oh, did it smell great. It's just like a perfume, some kind of a well, it was talk about an aphrodisiac. This was something that was a genuine appetizer. You'd smell that all the way out in the street. And here at the end of the bar would be about 4 or 5 Polish steelworkers. Remember, this is in the steel word. All the steelworkers are Polish, Hungarian. And there'd be about 4 or 5 big Polish steelworkers down there. And once in a while, one of these guys would reach down when I'm bringing the paper in. He'd reach his hand down into that jar and pull one of these babies out. And he'd chomp down into it and suck at this thing. What's going on in there, you two? You have a real little shtick going on. Why don't you just light them separately, what's that? So he reaches down, and they pull these things out. Oh, man. And I'd look at it. Then I'd take my potato chips and leave. Well, a couple of months go by, and then one big day, nobody's around. The bartender's in the back chopping ice. Nobody is sitting at the bar. And I'm all by myself. Have you ever been all by yourself in a supermarket? I mean, you think that you're not a person who is given to crime. I would like to suggest that many of us are not given to crime because we are rarely called. We rarely have the chance. Now I'm in the tavern all by myself. I walk back there. I lay these 2 pieces, my paper down at the bar, and I start to go. And I see that jar. This is one of the great, fantastic lessons of my life. And I open the jar up. Oh, what a beautiful smell. They smell like the most luscious of pickles. Or even beyond pickles. You know, I'm one of the few people who mainline pickles. I love pickles, you know. But this just sort of floats out and just permeates the entire atmosphere. And I can hear in the back, I hear the guy chopping the ice, and he hollers out, "Hey, is that you or the paper?" I say, yeah, it's me. Yeah. You want 2 Americans tonight? Okay, yeah. I take a look at this thing, this jar full of these pickles. My hand goes in. It's warm, kind of soft and warm. You know, wow, and that smell. And my hand goes around, and here are these big, long red ones down there, the round red ones, and those evil-looking green ones with the claws. You know, oh, yeah. I reach down, and I pull out this beautiful, well, it was yellow. I remember it was yellow, but mostly red. Red and yellow with a touch of green at each end. It was kind of a beautiful rainbow thing, see. Beautiful, just lovely, see. And I hold it in my hand. Oh, yeah. Whew. And then I check him out, see. I holler out at the guy out. Did you say you wanted 2 Americans? He goes, yeah. It's okay. I wanted to make sure he was still in the back, see. And I go, chomp. Oh, boy, it tasted great, see. Oh, boy. Then I take the second half. I go, chomp. Oh, boy. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh, boy, does that taste good. Oh, wow. And then, all the way down my throat, a great molten river of lava poured. I could feel it hit the bottom of my stomach like some enormous cascading waterfall of molten rock. And then I could feel needles of pain going out through my bloodstream and out the ends of my fingers. My head was pulsing. And so help me, I'll tell you, it felt as if I had in my mouth a great ball about the size of a softball. A great ball of molten coal. My teeth were burning. And I couldn't open my mouth. I didn't want him to know I'd been stealing his peppers. I stood there. And I tried to breathe. You know, you try to bring in the air so it blows the flame away. And I go, when the air hit it, it got worse. I clamped my mouth shut. And back at the counter, now wait a minute, this is the worst moment of all. Back at the counter, they had this spigot, you know, where the ice water comes out. Oh, the sweat is pouring out. My eyeballs are popping and they're bouncing off my kneecaps. Everything is swimming. The whole place is swimming around me. I reach over and I grab the spigot, see? There's a glass. I with the cold water. I open my mouth. I pour it. Little did I realize that the worst thing you can do when you have got the hot pepper hots is to put cold water in your mouth. It's like pouring gasoline on a burning fire. So help me, I thought I was going to die. I figured this was it, that they had poisoned me. I figured that I had bought it. It was who knows what, and I could feel my arm. I tell you, it makes you go numb all over. You go out of your skull. And then out of the back room comes the bartender with the big apron. He takes one look at me. He says, "Get out of the peppers, kid! Get out of the peppers!" He could see me, see. I had been turned to a pillar of salt. Right there before their eyes, the place was empty. And I just cannot describe to you. If you have never had a Polish pepper or a bird pepper from down in the islands, there is no description of it. If you think you've had anything hot, forget it. This is the ultimate hot. Well, it must have taken, I'd say it probably took me about 20 minutes before I regained my senses, before the horizon stopped spinning. And for days after that, every time I would take a glass of cold milk or water, every time, and all around the inside of my mouth, down by the roots of my teeth. Yeah, it was down all the way. It would pucker. I could hear little singing sounds. And in the middle of talking to somebody, just talking, I'd be talking to Flick or somebody, all of a sudden, without any warning, my vocal cords would tighten up. I had eaten an entire red-hot Polish pepper that was in full bloom and in heat. Now, this is the kind of thing that I did not realize it at the time. This is the kind of thing that it took steel melters, that it took iron smelter workers, that it took guys who worked in the forge shop 45 years to learn how to do. Yeah, they start them out as little kids, you know, give them a little nip of it, you know, once a year, until by the time the guy is probably in his mid-50s, he can take an entire pepper and just go down the hatch. And I must have been about 12. I'll never forget that moment. And you know, unless you've ever lived around steel workers, and particularly guys who are Croatians, Ukrainians, they love this kind of stuff. And I used to see those guys, and from that minute on, it changed my whole attitude towards them. I would come into the bar, the Bluebird Tavern, and the place would be half filled with guys from the forge mill, or they'd be from the open hearth. And I would see these guys. You've seen them do it, Corny. It's unbelievable. You'd see these guys eating these things the way other people eat peanuts. I could not understand it. It was like guys sitting there and having good long double shots of battery acid. I just couldn't. And they eat these things. And then from that day on, the bartender would always do this. You know how people get these little shticks, little ideas he thinks is funny. Every day when I would come in, he would say, "Oh, hey, Oh, hey, wait, hey, you want a pepper? You want a pepper? Here, I got some new peppers in today. I'd look at them, and all the steel workers, fire. Here, have a pepper, kid. And then I remember this big Polish guy, Rakowski. One day Rakowski says, hey, kid, what's the matter? Oh, come on, there's nothing eating peppers. Kid, come on, watch this, kid, peppers. He reaches in, and he takes a handful of peppers. He must have had 4 peppers in his hand. They were sticking out between his fingers, and he just opened his trap and went, oh, boy. He says, hey, Stewie, pull me a double. Come on, pull me a double, Stewie, Boilermaker. And he takes this Boilermaker, and he was doing the one thing that it really takes guts to do. And that is drink a cold beer after a mouthful of pepper. And that was the way he showed everybody around there that he was made out of asbestos. Oh, boy. Now, I don't think I've ever told that story on the air. Have I really? But it was one of the what? And, I never got up the guts to try them again. Even to this day, I have not gotten up the guts to try those insane hot peppers. And these guys would sit there and they pop in that trap. Speaking of insanity, that reminds me, this is WOR AM at FM. And, no, it's just AM now, isn't it? WOR AM in friendly old swinging New York. Hit the button there, Dad.
May I examine your glasses?
I can't see anything without them.
Please read these letters.
A-R-A-B-E-S-Q-U-E.
Arabesque, not bad. Now read these letters.
P-E-C-K.
Peck, good. Now these letters.
L-O-R-E-N.
Loren, wonderful. Now with both eyes wide open.
I see Gregory Peck, Sophia Loren in Arabesque from Stanley Donen, the man who gave you charade.
Perfect. Now read the small print.
Gregory Peck is hired to decipher a deadly code but finds ultra-adventure trying to decipher an exotic beauty, Sophia Loren, with a code of her own. Ultra-mod, ultra-mad, ultra-mystery, ultra-music by Henry Mancini. Arabesque in Technicolor.
Good vision. See Arabesque.
It's ultra.
Man, oh, wow. Oh, that brings back a whole series of things. Let's get on with a few of these whoopies here. Speaking of, oh boy, do we have a mess of them tonight. Let's see, we have Rover here. The Rover 2000. Wow, I'm hearing all that rock and roll. It's coming through like gangbusters here. Can't you cut it down in there? I knew that FM would finally swamp us. I'll tell you. Yeah, they're coming through big, and it isn't a very good record they're playing either right now. I mean, I wouldn't mind it, if it made sense. We have Rover 2000 with us, TC, and if you are planning to pop, this is a good time, by the way, to buy a car. People who buy cars in early spring are really asking for it. This is a good time to buy an automobile. And if you are planning to buy a new car, and if you are dreading going through the forthcoming winter in the same old turkey that you've been driving, believe me, I could give you no better advice than to recommend that you at least find out about the Rover. The Rover 2000 TC, and if you'd like to find out about this car, which has been described by many experts as one of the 4 or 5 finest automobiles of the past 20 years, as far as design, as far as safety, as far as general conformation is concerned, it is a superb car. Drop a card to us at Rover, WOR, and we'll send you the little jazzies here. We'll give you pictures and all the rest. By the way, they don't use your name for a customer list. Nobody's going to be pounding on your door. Oh, I say, sir. We're here from the Rover Company to take $4,000 from me, It won't work. Oh, do you have another one in there? All right, hit the button there. Let's go.
Miller High Life, the bright, clear tasting beer. Miller High Life, the champagne of bottled beer.
There's only one champagne of bottled beer. Sparkling, flavorful, distinctive. Miller High Life. Brewed from a century-old recipe, Miller High Life has a rich heritage and tradition. A bright, clear taste, unequaled, unquestioned, unchanging. Available on tap, in can, and in familiar crystal clear bottles. Miller High Life is always sparkling, flavorful, distinctive. Enjoy Miller High Life yourself.
Miller High Life, the champagne of bottled beer.
Yes, Miller High Life, the champagne of bottled beer.
And let's see. Yeah. I think I will save the second half of that story for the Limelight show tomorrow night, because that story should really be acted out rather than just talked about. I'll tell you, I wouldn't mind having one of those things. I think if I got a hold of a good Polish pepper. Now, I'm not sure that they're entirely only just Polish. I'll tell you one thing they do. If you have sinus trouble, don't laugh. They tell me that if you have sinus trouble, man, you take one of those bird peppers and everything you've got will come out. Well, it comes out everywhere. I mean, it just comes. Oh, man. Speaking of that, speaking of the Limelight, we're going to be at the Limelight tomorrow night, and I've had a request. In fact, I've had dozens of requests to do my famous plastic flamingo ballet. Yes, I have a beautiful ballet, which I worked on a few years ago. In fact, it was about a year and a half ago, and I did in an off-Broadway show. And it has to do with a pas de deux involving two plastic flamingos. It's magnificent. It's done with lighting. It's done with echo chambers. I do it with shadow card plays. It's what we call total theater. I do there's a short interlude of clog dancing in it, and there is one point that I think I don't like to brag, but rarely is the audience left with dry eyes. This is the point at which I play the bagpipes. And, no, don't laugh. Bagpipes there's a lot of different ways to play the bagpipes, and I play and not many people play bagpipes underwater. And of course, this entire ballet is an underwater ballet. We've got the pipes in down at the Limelight. Incidentally, we've got the police approval. Now, as long as we can keep them out, we'll be all right. Because we were closed one time in Boston doing this same ballet. This was with new faces. It's done with tights. I have green tights. And they're with sequins. And it really is a lovely thing. And you don't get a lot of it over the radio. So if any of you, not all of it you don't get over the radio. You just get the thumping once in a while. You get a little snort here and there and splash of the water and a little gurgle. But it makes a magnificent sight. It's purely visual. And the imagery, according to, who was it who said it? Oh, shucks. It slips my mind now. I believe it was Walter Winchell who said Mr. Shepard's imagery rivals that of Prokofiev in full flight, skimming over the entire folklore of Western music. That sounds like Winchell, doesn't it? Of course. And that's tomorrow night at the Limelight. We'll be there from 10:30 until midnight, and if you can't get down there, well, we'll be on the air. You can listen to the gurgles and the thumping and the flapping. The one thing I think you will like on the air, I wear these rubber flippers, and they sound very interesting on the air, especially with the applause and the cheers. Although it's done largely in silence. Speaking of silence, we'd better get with the stick here with a Regal Crown. Speaking of hot things, seriously, have you ever tried Regal Crown sour lemons candy? Well, we have a note here from a girl who says, I've been flunking for years. No, she meant it seriously. She says, I used to have a lot of, she must have been psychological. She says, in the middle of every exam, I'm at NYU. She says, of course, NYU does this to people anyway. In the middle of every exam, she says, I would have this fantastic ennui. I could hardly keep my eyes open. She says, I would look at those quadratic equations and they would start swimming in formation around, whistling Dixie and everything in front of me. She says, I could not. And she says, inadvertently, one day, without thinking, I had half a roll of Regal Crown sour lemons with me. She says, in the middle of an exam, I popped one into my trap, and that was the first time that I passed what we call quadratic identity. She says, I was able to squeak through, and she says, now I mainline these things. She says, I sneak them into my father's beer. As a matter of fact, she's the first time he's been awake in years. So if you're looking for a magnificent candy for just a dime, a miserable, thin, rotten dime, you just go up and holler. What is it you holler? What? Oh, I'm not going to tell you. If you're not listening to me, then if you're not going to take the potatoes out of your ears, the hell with you, I say. I say Regal Crown. I don't know what you're going to say. All right? You know, speaking of hot things of the trap, did I tell you about the time? I think I told this right after I came back. And this is something that, well, it's almost incommunicable. It's not. This is the kind of thing that you cannot truly communicate because it is a total experience. I've often said that there is nothing in the world, and I mean nothing in the world, to change you completely, irrevocably, and for all time, than travel. You can, and I mean real travel. Now, there's a difference between traveling and touring. A tourist often sees the world through the viewfinder of his brownie. He sees it out of the window of the car that hurries him through the countries that he's going to. And that's touring. That's not quite the same thing. The world is very unreal when you do that. It's as though you're on some kind of a long a toy railroad, and the scenery is moving past you, and you're just sitting still. That's a crazy feeling. But when you learn to travel, then you begin to change, and you cannot get around it. And probably the greatest experience I've ever had in traveling is the moment that I landed at Lagos. That's in Nigeria. The minute I came down in Lagos and that door swung open on that plane, and you could smell Africa. Africa has a smell all of its own, too, just like Asia has. And this particular part of Africa, by the way, in case you don't know that this is an interesting sidelight, the part of Nigeria that I was in was the part that Edgar Rice Burroughs had used for the background for the Tarzan stories. This is Tarzan's country, see? So I landed, and one of the things, too, about that Tarzan thing is that when you go into the bookstores in Lagos or Ibadan, the bookstores are loaded with Tarzan stories. All the people love to read about Tarzan. You know, it's like reading about the old hometown. You know, and I landed there, the door opened, whoo, this heat came in. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because I had one of the most insane eating experiences I ever had in my life. I could not believe it. I mean, it was unbelievable. What happened to me in Ibadan? I was in Nigeria for about, must have been about, at that point, about a week. And I decided to take a trip inland, in country. And I got myself a hold of a driver who was willing to take me into Ibadan. It's a trip about 150 miles straight inland. But that's a lot more than 150 miles here. You know, 150 miles with the Jersey Turnpike and with the Pennsylvania Turnpike is nothing. But 150 miles through the bush of Nigeria, that's a trip. And it's a trip. And so I got together with the guy that was going to take me. Great guy, and he had fantastic dress. He had this long, flowing purple and white robes, wild, flowing robes. And had a peculiar, wild sense of humor. And instantly, the minute we got together, there was something clicked, you know. He found what I said very funny, and I found what he said very funny. And so we began to dig within 5 minutes of getting in the car and taking off in the bush. And so we must have gone about, maybe about 2 hours. And it's hot. Oh, boy, is it hot. And now we're getting into the area where there is very little population, just a lot of bush country, real bush. We'd see these plains. Then you travel further, and you're in the high trees. The trees in Nigeria have to be seen to be believed. Some of those trees are, I'd say close to 200 feet tall, which is about a 20-story building. That's a lot of tree. And they just sort of hang there. They just sort of lean over the road. And they're so big, and the canopy that they cast is so powerful that nothing can grow under them. So you get the sense that you're always traveling through some surrealistic park. And once in a while you hear the sound of some animal in the distance go, ah, ah. They're just, ah, and it echoes. And then you see a great yellow bird or a red bird across the road. And then occasionally you see some kind of a wild pig. Well, they have many wild pigs, and some of them are very ferocious. You see this wild pig with big tusks. He runs along the road, and he runs right along the car. Into the bush he goes. And then we stop for about 5 minutes. We're hot. And he had some water in the back of the car, and so We stopped. He threw open the trunk, and we walked around the back. And he pulls out the water bag, and we were having a drink of water. And out of the bush came these guys, about 10 of them. They just drifted out. And it was a hunting tribe. It was a tribe of bush natives, just hunting tribe. And they came drifting out, and they're dressed only in these short loincloths, tall, magnificent. Wow, do these guys have muscular development? Oh, boy, magnificent. They come floating out. And they all speak English, of course, because English is the national tongue, see. They say, how you, sir, how? I say, hi, how are you, sir? He says, how are you? Go baden? I said, yeah. We sort of stood around and laughed. Everybody laughs continually. This is the most laughing, wildly funny country. Yeah, they laugh constantly, just continually. They laugh, they hit each other, yell. And so we talked a little bit, and one of them was carrying a beautiful muzzle-loader rifle. A muzzle-loader, a rifle, beautiful thing that they had made. You see, they make their own rifles. And you would never guess where they get the barrels. Sears Roebuck. So help me. Sears Roebuck has a special African catalog. Boy, what a collector's item. I saw one of the Sears Roebuck African catalogs. And, you know, a lot of people, you walk past the Sears store and you don't realize what a worldwide thing this Sears Roebuck business is. I never knew it. And they have very special things for all over different parts of the world. And they have this African catalog. And they supply to various centers in places like Nigeria and so on these rifle barrels. They're special rifle barrels. They're not even rifle barrels, actually. They're lengths of specially treated pipe. Very straight, but they're pipe. And you go in and you buy this thing if you're a native and you want to make a rifle. You buy it, and then you season the rifle barrel. They season it in heat, and they temper it until finally it gets that dark blue color. It begins to look like and they polish it. And then they carve it. They carve it with all kinds of little tools, and they make this thing into a beautifully chased piece of metal sculpture, is what it really winds up being. And sometimes they will even inlay silver in it. They carve this thing. And then they go out and they get a piece of wood, a special kind of wood that grows deep in the heart of the jungle. It's a very rare kind of hard, tremendously hard, beautiful wood that is almost the color of dark, clotted blood. That's beautiful. No, don't go ugh. It's a beautiful dark red, because if I said blood color, it doesn't really describe it. It's a dark, and they call it bloodwood. And they carve these things, and they're very delicate, tiny guns. They're not making a big rifle. This rifle is no more than, I'd say it doesn't weigh more than perhaps 2 pounds. It's a tiny thing. It isn't really a rifle. It's a shotgun. I should explain that to you. It's a shotgun. And they buy these tiny shells, which they fill themselves. They're little cartridges. And it's flintlock. And you'll never guess what they use for the flint in this thing. Zippo lighters. They take the guts out of a Zippo lighter. Yeah, they polish it. They take the guts out of the Zippo lighter, and they make a little pan out of sheet steel. That's where they put the powder and the stuff, you know. They have this little cartridge that has a cap in it. And it explodes when you run this. It's a muzzle loader really, and a flintlock muzzle loader at that. And the thing goes off, and it lights this little paper capsule of powder they've got, which is specially treated paper, so that when this little spark lands on it, it goes boom like that. And then it goes off, and it shoots out through the barrel a tiny charge of birdshot that is so fine that it's almost like mustard seed. And that's what they use to hunt monkeys. And they use it to hunt very tiny birds with. They don't fight lions, or they don't fight rhinos, or they don't fight boars with this thing. And they hunt out drifting through the woods just like silent shadows. And they hunt with these tiny rifles. Well, I saw this guy's rifle, see. And I said to him, you have a rifle. You want to sell a rifle? I said, would you like to sell it? It's a beautiful little rifle. And, by the way, my guide had said when they come out, they often come out for the purpose of selling something to you. That's why they're there, you know, you want to sell something. So I says, how about a rifle? And he says, you want a rifle? Very expensive rifle. Very expensive. And I said, well, how much? He says, more than 1 pound. More than 1 pound. Very expensive. Well, I'd have to tell you that the pound is 3 for $1. So that means the rifle went for about 40 cents, see? And I felt terrible, so I said to the guide, I said, I don't think this is terrible. And immediately there was a lot of conferencing going on among the 4 or 5 of them. And one of them turned to me and finally says, well, 1 pound. It's now coming down. You see, I wanted it to go up. It's now coming down. And I felt terrible. I didn't know where's that. And finally the guy says, oh, no, very bad. Too much. No, we get in the car. Oh, bye. And in the car we go. And they laugh, and off we drive. It was the end of the scene. And so we drove on about, you want to hear more about this? This is good. So we drove on about, I'd say about another 15 miles. And I'm talking to the guide, saying, he's a great guy. We're talking back and forth. And I says, I want to really, I really, from what I've seen around, the food looks very interesting. And I'd had a little bit of, let's say, borderline, true native African food. I said, borderline. I didn't know it at the time. And so he said to me, he says, you want to try real food? He says, I know very good place. Very good place. He said, a very good place. We'll be there in, maybe 4 or 5 minutes. And we are driving through the jungle at about 90 miles an hour. Corny, I'll tell you, you could not, if you think that Madison Avenue cab drivers are insane, if you think that 6th Avenue is the ultimate in the Grand Prix department, you should sit in a car any place in Central Africa. They just don't know of any other speed other than top speed all the time. So you go 90 miles an hour. And it's very scary when you're going around S curves, and you're meeting other cars going 90 miles an hour. And they yell at each other when they meet. Whoa! We go past and skid and around. I'm trying to play it cool, I'm a very cool type. And so he says, you want to try food? And I says, yes, I want to try food. And so we stopped at a place, of all the places I've ever been in my life, I will never forget. To begin with, there was probably the most beautiful girl that I have ever seen in my life. What a girl! I mean, she was like, have you ever seen somebody or something so beautiful that it's unbelievable? It's like an apparition. Honest, really, it's like a genuine, live, living work of art. That magnificent girl. And I hate to admit this, she kind of dug me. I'll tell you, it was a very funny moment. And we arrived in this tiny place. It was open. And he knew these people. And the lady came out, and she had a big red dress with big yellow flowers all over it. Meat is great. Oh, they give me bananas. We had a wonderful time. I don't think I've ever been in a country I dug more completely all the way than Nigeria. And so we're sitting there eating the bananas. And he says, Mammy. He always called her Mammy. He says, Mammy, you know how to make, and he gave 2 or 3 lines of Yoruba, a native dialect, 2 or 3 lines of Yoruba, which I did not catch. Up to that point, they always talk English. You go, would you know how to make a, he goes, something in Yoruba. And she said, of course. You want this? And I said, yes. Well, 5 minutes later, they brought out 3 dishes, and all of us sat around. The girl, Mammy, the father, the guide, and me, and 3 great big bowls of this innocuous-looking stuff. One was kind of white, and then there was a kind of a dish full of brownish red. It looked a little like Hungarian goulash, a little like goulash, or beef stew, see. And so they just dip in, They'd say, dip right in. They take a piece of bread, they have that bread, and they dip right in. They just start to eat. And so I said, eat. So I dipped this piece of bread in there. It looked beautiful. And did it smell great. They use peanuts in it. It's got peanuts, and it's got all kinds of herbs in it. I dip it in, I put it in my mouth, and boom! Oh. Have you ever wondered how it feels to be ionized? I'm telling you, I was turned into a total mass of positive and negative ions. I was reduced to a gaseous state. And I had to be polite. I'm sitting there, and my eyes are watering, and my guide is laughing his guts out. Oh, wow. There's a lot of things in this world, not only cabbages.